The cry beneath the stars on. A planet lit only by the glow of its 3 moons. Silence covered the broken village like a blanket. The stars above blinked like cold witnesses, too far to care. The war had ended days ago, but the smell of smoke and grief still floated in the dry air. That night, Ethan Cole, a human engineer stranded far from Earth, walked alone through the ruins of the alien world called Zeria. He wasn't a soldier. He didn't carry a weapon. His hands, stained with grease and ash, were used to fixing machines, not lives, but something made him stop. A soft sound. It wasn't wind. It wasn't a dying engine. It was crying. Very faint, almost a whisper. He followed it carefully through the debris. Parts of alien homes were scattered around. Metal, glass, fabric so fine it caught the moonlight like threads of silver. Most of the village had been cleared by the rescue teams. But this part, hidden beneath a collapsed roof and broken walls, had been missed. Then he saw her. Curled inside a shell of shattered stone was an alien woman, her body trembling as she sobbed. She wore a ceremonial cloak, now torn and burned. Her violet skin shimmered under the starlight, and her large, luminous eyes were red with sorrow. She looked up when she heard Ethan's steps, and for a moment, their eyes met. She didn't scream. She didn't move. She was too tired, too broken. Ethan raised his hand slowly. "Hey, I'm not here to hurt you," he said softly. "Are you all right?" She stared at him without speaking. Her lips trembled, her eyes blinked, and tears fell again. "I'm human," he added, "but I'm not with the soldiers who did. I'm just trying to help." The woman stayed quiet. Her breathing was shallow and her cloak wrapped tightly around something in her arms. It was a child. No, a lifeless, tiny figure wrapped in fabric. Ethan's heart dropped. She was holding her dead child, and still crying. Something inside Ethan cracked open. He had seen battlefields, burnt forests, wrecked cities. But nothing like this. Nothing this raw. This quiet. She was alone. She had no voice left to scream. "My name is Ethan," he said gently. "What's your name?" She whispered something too soft to hear. He moved closer, slowly, kneeling down beside her without asking, not touching, just sitting with her under the stars. "I'm not going to leave you here." She didn't answer, but she didn't stop him either. They sat like that for hours, both of them silent, with only the stars and the night air between them. When the first light of dawn touched the horizon, the alien woman finally spoke. "My name is Vera." Ethan nodded. "Vera, that's a beautiful name." She closed her eyes. "My mate is dead. My child is dead. Why, am I still here?" Ethan didn't have the answer, so he did the only thing he could. He took off his jacket and gently laid it over her shoulders. "You're here," he whispered, "because someone still needs to know your story." The sky above them began to brighten, and that was the moment, and the very first moment, a bond began to grow between the human and the widow beneath the stars. The touch of grief. The silence inside the small hut felt heavier than any storm. The alien widow, named Liari, sat by the corner, her head low, her long silver tendrils lying flat across her back. On her world, this was the sign of deep sorrow. On Earth, humans weep. On Zevlon, they dim. John watched her carefully, not saying anything yet. He knew that grief was a storm that must pass through its own time. But seeing Liari like this, it broke something inside him. Her warrior husband had died only days ago in the final ambush during the Outer Rim defense. John had served with him. He had seen it all. Now Liari was alone. Truly alone. Her people had rituals, yes, but they were not here. She had moved to the outpost colony to be with her mate. Now she had nothing. She didn't even cry. Zevali didn't cry, but they did tremble. John noticed it, just the smallest shake in her shoulders, like her soul was falling apart from the inside. He knelt slowly, not too close. "I brought food," he said softly, placing down a warm container. "It's not much, just earth soup. It's good when your chest feels like breaking." Liari didn't look at him, but after a few seconds she whispered, "You shouldn't be here." "Maybe not," John replied. "But I think you shouldn't be alone either." A long silence followed, and then she finally moved. Just one hand. She reached toward the food, touched the warm metal of the container, then stopped. Her fingers shook as if touching something that reminded her of what she lost. John didn't say a word. He just placed a small cloth over the table, something he used in his own home with patterns, something gentle, something soft. She looked at it, and something changed. "My people say the stars carry the voices of the dead," Liari said suddenly. "If I close my eyes, I hear him calling." John's heart tightened. "Maybe he is," he said, "and maybe he wants to know you're still standing." The words seemed to matter. Liari breathed in slowly. Her back straightened. The tendrils rose just slightly, no longer flat. It wasn't a miracle. It wasn't a cure. But it was something. "You're strange," she murmured. "You don't act like a soldier." "I'm not here as a soldier," John answered. "I'm here as a man, a friend." That moment became the beginning of something unspoken between them. He didn't try to fix her. He didn't try to explain away the pain. He just stayed. And in the stillness, where the galaxy often forgets the small lives on its edge, two beings from different worlds shared something real, loss, and the human touch that could comfort even the silence of stars. Language without words. John came back the next day, and the day after that. He didn't come with flowers or grand speeches. Just quiet things. Hot drinks, stories from Earth, a new blanket with a soft texture that Liari found strange but comforting. At first she barely spoke, but she never asked him to leave. There was something powerful in the silence between them. John realized that grief didn't need loud voices. It needed presence, warmth, someone who didn't rush it away. Liari didn't know how to show thanks the way humans did. Her species didn't hug or smile much, but she did something small. She cleaned a corner of her home, laid out a seat for him, even offered him water from her own reserves. That meant a lot, and John understood. One night, as the twin moons rose high, Liari stood at the edge of her porch. Her long eyes stared up at the glowing sky. "It's strange," she said finally, "how quiet everything becomes after death." John nodded beside her. "Yeah, it's like the world keeps moving, but slower." She tilted her head toward him. "Do humans talk about the dead often?" "We do," John replied. "Sometimes we cry, sometimes we drink, sometimes we tell stories, but mostly, we try not to forget." Liari looked at him for a moment, then quietly asked, "Will you tell me one?" So John began. He told her about her mate, not just the soldier, but the funny things. The way he sang badly in the showers, how he once chased a cargo droid thinking it was a thief, how he talked about Liari with pride in his eyes. Liari closed her eyes, and when she opened them, her voice shook. "He never told me those things." "He didn't have to," John said softly. "I saw it in him." She looked down. One small tear-like drop slid down her cheek. Savali didn't cry like humans. Their tears glowed faintly in the dark. It was like a light, not water. That was the first time John saw her light. Liari didn't say anything else that night, but she moved closer to him. Not touching, not leaning. Just closer. Close enough for John to hear the soft rhythm of her breath. They didn't speak after that, but they didn't need to. The stars above said everything. Because grief wasn't always heavy words or sobbing. Sometimes it was sharing space with someone who didn't run away. And in that silence, something began to grow. Not romance. Not yet. Just trust. And in that quiet trust, Liari began to live again. The widow's first laugh. The next day, John came again. This time he brought something unusual, a tiny box with blinking lights and buttons. It wasn't dangerous. It was fun. What's that? Liari asked, eyeing the strange object with suspicion. A puzzle cube. John grinned. It's for thinking. It twists, turns, clicks. Some humans use it to relax. Others just get angry and throw it at the wall. Liari blinked. And you think this will help my sadness? No, he said honestly. But it might help you feel something else for a minute. He handed her the cube. She turned it over in her hands, the foreign plastic clicking under her slender alien fingers. It's strange. Yeah, John nodded. But so is healing. Liari tried twisting the sides. Nothing happened at first. Then, click. A panel moved. She gasped slightly. It changed. John smiled. Exactly. That's the point. They sat together for an hour. Liari working the puzzle. John sipping a hot drink and talking softly about earth things. Trees with orange leaves, noisy birds, places where snow fell thick like clouds. Liari didn't understand all the words, but the way he spoke made her feel something warm inside. Then suddenly, the cube made a funny chirping noise. It wasn't supposed to, but John had accidentally turned on a hidden sound effect. It made a fart sound. Liari blinked, then blinked again, and then she laughed. It started as a breath, then a soft, airy laugh, alien and light. John looked at her with wide eyes. Did you just... Yes, she said quickly, almost embarrassed. He grinned. You laughed. Liari looked away, but there was a small glow around her cheeks, her species version of a blush. It surprised me. That's a good surprise, John said. It means there's still life inside you. Liari stared at the cube. You humans are strange. You don't know the half of it, John chuckled. For the first time since her mate's passing, Liari felt something in her chest that didn't hurt. It didn't heal her entirely, but it gave her a crack in the wall, a bit of air, and that was enough. Later that evening, she did something unexpected. She invited John inside. Her home was quiet, simple. The lights dimmed with mood. She offered him a seat near the fireplace that hummed softly with heat crystals. Would you like to see something? She asked. Of course. She showed him a small orb. When activated, it projected holograms of her late mate. Images, short, moving clips, pieces of the past. John stood silently. Liari's voice was soft. I watch this sometimes, but I think I want to put it away for a little while. John didn't say anything. He just placed his hand gently on the table beside her. I think, Liari continued, I want to remember him. Without living. In him. That's strong, John whispered. No, Liari said, placing the orb back in a drawer. That's healing. They sat near the fireplace, not talking much, just watching the soft light play on the walls. Outside, the wind moved through the trees of her alien world. Inside, the human and the widow shared something new. Not grief, not silence, but peace. She trusted the human with her tears. Liari never cried in front of others, not even when her mate was buried beneath the starlit soil of their homeworld. In her culture, grief was private, tears were sacred, and showing sorrow was something done only when alone, or with someone your soul trusted. But now things were different. John returned the next day with no tools, no gadgets, just himself. His warm jacket smelled faintly of earth spice, and his eyes held that soft, gentle concern that Liari was starting to understand. Not pity, not fear, just kindness. He brought tea, made from native leaves she had never dared to brew. It's not strong, he said, but it's calming. They sat again by the same fire. The quiet between them was no longer awkward. It felt Safe. John spoke gently. When I lost my mother, I didn't cry for 5 days. Then I saw her favorite flower bloom in the garden, and I just broke. Liari looked at him, eyes wide. You cried? I sobbed, John admitted. Like a child. Liari turned her face away, blinking fast. We're told not to do that, to hold it in. Let the ground take our pain. John shook his head. Sometimes, the ground doesn't want it. It wants us to let go so we can grow again. Her shoulders trembled slightly. I haven't even spoken his name since the funeral. John didn't push. He just waited. After a long silence, Liari whispered. His name was Varun. And then it came. Not loudly. Not wildly. Just soft tears like rain after years of drought. Quiet. Slow. Falling down her alien cheeks. John reached out but didn't touch her. He simply held his hand open, an invitation, not a command. Liari placed her fingers into his palm and gripped tight. Her breathing shook. The fire crackled beside them. The stars above her house blinked in silence, and she wept, not alone, not afraid. With him. When she finally spoke again, her voice was different, raw but free. He was strong, brave, but also silly. He once brought me a sack of pebbles, thinking they were rare stones. I laughed for hours. John smiled softly. Sounds like someone I would have liked. You remind me of him, she admitted. They sat there as the hours passed. Liari's head slowly leaned against John's shoulder, not as a lover, not yet, but as someone who found safety. By the time the fire dimmed, her eyes were red, her chest lighter, and her soul quieter. I didn't know humans could carry so much pain, she said. We do. John nodded. But we share it. That's what makes it bearable. That night Liari dreamed not of graves, but of stars and laughter, and a man with earth-colored eyes holding her hand in the dark. An invitation to stay. The next morning, the sun rose with soft golden light over the purple trees near Liari's home. Birds with long tails and shimmering wings chirped in strange melodies. Dew shimmered on the grass like tiny stars. Inside, John sat quietly near the window, sipping something warm. Liari watched him from the hallway. Her steps were quiet, but her thoughts were loud. Since that night, since she cried in front of him, something inside her had shifted. Not just her grief, not just her sorrow, something deeper. A space that was once cold, now felt warm. She had told him her husband's name. She had wept into the shoulder of a human. Now for the first time she wanted him to stay. You didn't run, she said softly. John looked up and smiled. You didn't tell me to. Liari stepped into the light. Her robe shimmered with gentle fabric, more ceremonial than casual. She had not worn it since Varun's burial. I thought you would leave after seeing my weakness. John's brow furrowed. That wasn't weakness, Liari. That was courage. She sat across from him. Most beings flee from a grieving widow. Some avoid me. Some whisper I've cursed my home with silence. He chuckled lightly. Then I guess I'm strange. Because I find your silence unpeaceful. A long moment passed. Then Liari stood, walked slowly to a carved drawer. From it she pulled a small object, a glowing stone set in silver. She placed it on the table before him. What's this? John asked. It's an offer, she said gently. We call it a Stellan sigil. It's given to guests who are more than guests. Those who bring healing, those we want to stay. John looked at the stone. It shimmered faintly in the morning light, warm to the touch, though no heat came from it. I don't want you to feel pressured, Liari added, but I feel your presence here brings life to this home again. John touched the sigil, feeling a quiet weight in his chest. Not heavy, but meaningful. I was supposed to leave tomorrow, he said quietly. You still can. He looked at her. Do you want me to? Liari didn't answer right away, but her eyes held the truth, a truth deeper than words. No, she whispered. He nodded slowly. Then I'll stay. A silence fell again, soft, gentle, like a blanket over old scars. Outside, the wind rustled the trees. Inside, something new began to bloom between them. Not love. Not yet. But understanding. Trust. Comfort. The kind that grows, slowly. The kind that lasts. John stood and walked to the window. Liari joined him. For the first time in many nights, she did not feel the cold emptiness of grief alone. A human stood beside her, a strange man from a distant world, and yet, in that moment, she felt seen. Not as a widow, not as a broken soul, but as a woman, still breathing, still alive, and maybe ready to begin again. The quiet spark. Between them, that evening the stars came out early. The twin moons of Liari's planet moved slowly across the sky, one pale blue, the other glowing red. John stepped outside the home just as the first moonlight touched the balcony floor. His breath made soft clouds in the cool air. He leaned on the railing, watching the wind roll through the trees like waves on an alien sea. Behind him, the door opened. Liari stepped out, wrapped in a deep violet shawl. Her eyes were calm, her movements light. She stood beside him silently, her presence steady. Neither of them spoke for a while. Then John broke the silence. You've stopped crying, she nodded. And you stopped packing? He smiled, turning his head slightly to look at her. Seems like neither of us is going anywhere. Liari lowered her eyes. I still miss Varun. I think I always will. You should, John said. That means he mattered, that your love was real. She looked at him. But I've also started thinking about tomorrow, and for so long I was stuck in yesterday. John turned toward her. You're not alone anymore, Liari. I know, she whispered. A soft wind brushed her hair across her face. John gently reached out and tucked it behind her ear. His fingers brushed her skin, cool, smooth, and trembling slightly. She didn't pull away. Instead, she stepped closer. There's a tradition among my people, Liari said. When someone helps heal a grieving heart, we offer them tea. Not as a guest, not as a healer, but as someone who may one day belong. John's eyes searched hers. And if I say yes? She smiled softly. Then you drink. A few minutes. Later, they sat in her quiet kitchen, 2 small steaming cups between them. The tea had a sweet, unfamiliar scent, floral and warm. They drank slowly, not speaking, not needing to. Something new had taken root between them. It wasn't about replacing what was lost. It wasn't about filling a space someone else once held. It was about growing something together, delicate, unsure but full of possibility. Later, as they walked beneath the moons, Liari touched his hand. Briefly, lightly. He didn't move. She didn't let go. And for the first time in many nights, her dreams were not filled with shadows of the past, but with light, with warmth, with the quiet, slow-burning spark of something she never thought she'd feel again. Hope. And beside her walked a human. Strange, stubborn, kind. Not her rescuer, not her replacement, but maybe, just maybe, her future.